with you guys, and I just want to say thank you to those of you that already put your questions in the community section. There were some interesting ones that I'm pretty excited to talk about. Before I do that, I just want to I always like to give an overview and then we'll go into the questions so that you kind of have context in how to use this information, because there's so much that I put out here on YouTube, on Instagram, that it all just becomes pieces of information, and what I want to try to do is help you put it into a formula that you can actually apply and works well with your life. So I started something new here on YouTube where every week I'm going to theme my teachings, and the theme of this week was science. So I really came back to the roots of science and what we're seeing. We don't always get great new studies that come out every week, but there were some new studies that came out of the last couple of weeks that I felt like were really important to highlight. For starters, blood pressure. If you didn't see the video I did yesterday on blood pressure, that was profound. And I want to talk a little bit about why that study was so important to the fasting world. And then tomorrow, oh my gosh, I have a great one for you guys tomorrow. It was the title, and I'm just going to leave it at this because you got to go watch the video. The title of the video was, or the article was, Intermittent Fasting Doesn't Work for Belly Fat. Okay. So I dove into the science of why this headline went around, and it was the article and the research. The study was put out at the beginning of March, so it's not exactly new, but of course, anytime we can diss fasting, and it's sensational, they're going to make a headline out of it. So you'll have to go watch that tomorrow. Let's talk about the blood pressure one, because this is fascinating. In the nuance of that study, what they were looking at is this idea that blood pressure gets high in the human body when the microbiome is out of balance. And so the researchers were really coming at blood pressure from a microbiome standpoint. Okay, if you're not familiar with the power of your microbiome, you are 10 times more bacteria than you are human cells. When we talk about autophagy and we talk about ketones, we're talking about manipulating, making changes in human cells. But when I talk about a 24-hour fast, when I talk about, anything over a 24-hour fast, when I talk about carnivore fasting, or I talk about polyphenol prebiotics, we are trying to manipulate, for lack of a better word, we're trying to make a change in the microbiome. So what I love about fasting is that we can use the tools and our understanding around fasting to not only make human cell changes, but we can change the microbiome. So in this blood pressure study, what they wanted to see was, if we change the microbiome of a person who had high blood pressure, would there be an effect? And they answered that very clearly in the study. You can go look at the notes that I put on that video, that yes, and they did it through a fecal transplant. What they did is they took the stools of a person with low blood pressure and they put it into a person with high blood pressure. That's a whole nother discussion, but it's called a fecal transplant. So they basically exposed the person with high blood pressure to the microbiome of the person with the low blood pressure. And what they did is they found that that person's blood pressure came down. That's cool. Then what they said was, okay, what if we start fasting people? Will their blood pressure come down? And what is that because of the microbiome? And the answer was yes, that they saw changes in the microbiome, and they found that those microbiotic changes lowered blood pressure. And then they said, okay, well, what if we take a fecal transplant of the changes made in the fasters who got lower blood pressure and put that into a high blood pressure body? Would we see it come down? And the answer is yes. So the overarching idea around this is fasting changes your microbiome. So whether you're trying to make more GABA or dopamine or improve your immune system, You can make that change through fasting. My personal favorite is a 24-hour fast, because that really will have the most dramatic effect on your microbiota, especially in your gut. So really cool research, and I just wanted to put out, tomorrow you're going to hear me on the belly fat really talk about how we can use fasting variation to improve belly fat, reduction. So you'll hear me talk about that. Not that too many people want to improve belly fat, maybe you do. But yeah, so that's really interesting. So one of the things that you will hear from me over and over again is that there's going to be these soundbite headlines that will continue to come out into the world about fasting and the ketogenic diet. And what I really want to make sure that my followers are clued into is don't fall into the prey of the headline. Let's start to think for ourselves and learn how to get below the soundbite and start to think this through, because your body was born in an intelligent, self-healing machine, and what fasting is doing for you is teaching you that. So let's not get pulled away by a headline. Let's understand a little deeper as to how to use fasting to tap into these self-healing tools that are pre-programmed that we come designed with. So anyways, really cool. I had a lot of fun. And next week, okay, I'll give you a little preview. Next week, I go into fasting detox symptoms. So I have one video that's all on the detox symptoms. Everything from rashes to fatigue to brain fog to insomnia to diarrhea to constipation. I put a video out talking about why that is and what you can do. And then the second video is specifically on constipation. I'll talk a little bit about diarrhea in that one, because constipation's a biggie. We are hearing a lot of people talk about the detox effect of fasting being constipation. So in that video, that'll come out next Friday, I talk about, I think I put about 9 different hacks that I like for constipation while you're doing fasting. And some of them are pretty cool and unique that I've never spoken of on a public platform. So that's coming down. And then the following week, I'm researching right now. I'll shoot those videos tomorrow. And I'm diving into oxytocin and what's going on with oxytocin with fasting. And then could we use oxytocin to help with fasting? So remember the hormonal hierarchy, oxytocin's at the top. So I've been thinking lately about how do we use oxytocin to our fasting advantage, and that will come out the following week. So stay tuned.
Awesome. Hello, everybody. Thanks for letting us know where you are in the world.
Yeah, let's do this. 2 things. I love knowing where you guys are from, but remember that we're a huge community here, and people go and read the comments. So tell me your favorite fasting win. Is it a weight loss? Is it sleep? Is it energy? Just put it in the notes or in the comments, because what you do for somebody when you tell your fasting win is that when people are new to fasting and they come to my YouTube channel, they hear what I say and then they see what you guys are experiencing. And that is really powerful. And as you know, my goal is to get 1 million people fasting this year, because it's free, it's effective, and it doesn't take time. Anybody can do it. So you guys can be a part of that mission with me. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, today's the end of Ramadan.
Oh,
so,
cool.
I think I forget the name of the day. There's a name.
Okay. Let's talk.
Mubarak, I think is how, I forget how to pronounce it, but yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the end of Ramadan for a second. But because I want to just point out Ramadan fasting and how beneficial it is. We talked about it last week, I believe, but there's a couple things we can learn from Ramadan fasting. One, it's a circadian fast. So if you guys are struggling with sleep, Ramadan fasting, where you're eating before and drinking before the sun comes up, not eating or drinking during the day, and then eating and drinking when the sun goes down, that can be a way to reset your circadian rhythm. I do believe if you're going to do that, you should have your carbs in the morning and protein at night, because you're more insulin sensitive in the morning. The other thing is it's a dry fast. So we have great research showing that Ramadan fasting increases BDNF, which is brain fertilizer. So if you're struggling with memory, Ramadan fasting can really be a good tool. And then the third is the length of it. So when you're doing this circadian dry fasting combo and you're doing it for 30 days, research is showing us that you can turn off genes for cancer doing this, and that you can turn on genes for DNA repair, for fat breakdown, for glucose metabolism. I did a video on that, gosh, a while back. So if my staff knows where it is, they may not know, but it was done maybe in October on dry fasting for 30 days. And I think the title of the video was Turning Genes On and Off Through Fasting. So, cool.
Okay, great. So we're going to go with our questions that are in the community section. If we have time, we'll get to the questions here in the chat. So the first question is your favorite. This is from Kim, and she wants to know what your favorite supplement is for hot flashes. She's been fasting for 5 months, intermittent fasting.
Okay.
Still struggling with hot flashes and insomnia.
Okay, so Kim wants to know my favorite supplement for hot flashes. She's also fasting, which is great. I believe, by the way, on any supplement, you want to fix your lifestyle first, and then a supplement can supplement what you're trying to repair. I believe in cycling in and out of supplements. I just strongly also believe that we should use lifestyle to really help create a good foundation for our health. So I'm happy to hear that she's already put in there that she's fasting and doing some of the other things I teach. Okay, hot flashes. So let's talk about what that is. So hot flashes is this up and down of estrogen. And it oftentimes can get triggered after 40 as estrogen goes crazy, but we see it even in postmenopausal women where they're still getting hot flashes. So whenever you think about a hot flash, I want you to think about that it's an estrogen out of control. That's the first thing I want to tell you. So when estrogen gets out of control, whether it's too high or too low, oftentimes it's too low, it will trigger the hypothalamus to turn up the heat. So we want to balance estrogen. Well, we know we can balance estrogen by becoming insulin sensitive. So Kim, the fact that you are doing a fasting lifestyle, hopefully you're varying your keto, varying your fast is a great first start. Now, there are 2 organs you need to be able to keep estrogen in check, and those are your liver and your gut. So make sure that you're always creating a good support for the liver, good support for the gut. And again, detox pathways, I've done a lot of videos on that. Now, if you've got those 2 under control, now we can look at a proper supplement. And my absolute favorite hot flash supplement is Femicrin. I actually like Femicrin for any woman trying to balance estrogen and progesterone. I feel like that's a really good supplement because what it does, remember that estrogen and progesterone work in opposition with each other. So one of the reasons people become estrogen dominant is not necessarily because they're exposed to too many endocrine disruptors, which they are, but because the danger happens when progesterone gets too low, like when you're going through menopause or you're under a lot of stress or you're fasting not for your cycle, progesterone will tank and estrogen goes wild. So what Femicrin does is it helps bring that estrogen progesterone balance back and it opens up receptor sites. So that would be my first favorite one. Now, beyond that, there are other supplements, but I would want you to actually do a Dutch test to see where the estrogen imbalance is before I launched you into some of those other ones. I think starting with Femicrin is great. And as always, with systemic formulas, supplements, I like if people go in strong for a while, and like a month, maybe 90 days. I would do like 4 of those. I don't, again, know your health history, but I would go in strong. It's a food-based supplement. Try it for 90 days, see what happens. It has some DIM in it, which will help with hot flashes. And then from there, if you're not getting a result, I would do a Dutch test and see what kind of customization you need.
Great. This is from MacBook, so who knows who MacBook is. Is fasting okay when you have hyperthyroidism?
Hyperthyroidism? Hypo. Okay. Is fasting okay for hypothyroid? This is a great question. Again, I've done videos on thyroid. I feel like I should probably go back and do some more because there's a lot of thyroid problems going on. Okay. So let's talk about endocrine organs. Endocrine organs are your thyroid, your ovaries, testes, adrenal glands. Whenever we look at these endocrine organs, they're a part of a team. And the team looks like the hypothalamus, pituitary, and then the organs. So with a thyroid, we can't just treat the thyroid. We have to look at the hypothalamus and the pituitary as being a part of managing the thyroid. So with hypothyroidism, we have many factors. So it's possible that your thyroid's not getting enough information from your pituitary and hypothalamus. There's a miscommunication there. So yes, would fasting help with that? Yes, and I'll talk about that. It could be that the thyroid itself has too many toxins in it, and you're not doing very well because of the toxic load. Could fasting help with that? Absolutely. It could be that your body has a mixed up immune system and that you're creating you have like a Hashimoto's scenario where the body is actually attacking the thyroid. Could fasting help with that? Absolutely. There are 11 different thyroid tests that I recommend. You can go to my website and see those there. Just type in thyroid and the blog post should pull up. I have 11 tests that we recommend you take to your MD and have them test. So your reason for hypothyroidism, I don't know, but I know the principles of fasting and how they relate to the thyroid. When we want to clean up the hypothalamus and pituitary, you want to do more autophagy fasting. So remember that the neurons in the brain are very receptive to autophagy. So more 17-hour plus fasting. That would be phenomenal. We also know that if your thyroid problems are due to the thyroid gland not working well, and that's a toxicity issue, we want more autophagy fasting because autophagy helps make those cells more efficient, the ones that are packed with toxins. Now, if your hypothyroidism is due to a gut issue, then you want to do more 24-hour fasts because we know a 24-hour fast is going to change the terrain in the gut and rebalance the microbiome in the gut. So you would want to lean into that. Now, the last thing I'm going to say on the thyroid is there was some research that came out and it made all, again, sound bites, that it made everybody go, no fasting for thyroid. And it was this, that they saw in a calorie restricted diet. Okay, let's talk about that for a moment. Calories restricted and fasting are not the same. The way I teach fasting here is you're compressing your eating window and elongating your fasting window, but in that eating window, you're eating. So you can't take a calorie restriction study and put that into the same category as fasting. So that's the first thing. But in this study, what they showed is in a calorie restricted diet, T3 went down. Now, T3 is your bioavailable hormone for thyroid that makes it usable in the cell. So if you're already hypothyroid, you hear this and you're like, no, I don't want T3 to go down. But what they didn't tell you is A, it was a calorie restricted study, and B, they didn't tell you what happened when they brought food back in. Yes, in a fasted state, there was a temporary reduction in T3, but then what ended up happening is when they ate again, T3 actually went up, and it had the reverse effect. This is Walter Longo's study with the white blood cell count. 3 days on water fast, white blood cells went down. When they brought food back in, blood cell count went back up, but these were fresh, new, reinvigorated white blood cells. So we can use fasting as a tool to boost that T3 along with repairing the hypothalamus and pituitary, along with helping the cells of the thyroid. And now we're coming at this from all different angles. So the answer to your question is absolutely yes, but I want you to understand why, because there's so much misinformation about fasting out there, and especially around the thyroid. So there you go. There's my very opinionated opinion.
Just a little bit. Christy wants to know, could fasting trigger spotting 2 weeks before you're supposed to start your period?
Okay, so if you're fasting and spotting, let's start with this. Who was it, Christy?
Christy.
So, Christy, spotting means low progesterone. So, I don't know how old you are, but just know anytime you're spotting, you're low progesterone. So, regardless of 2 weeks before her period, that sounds to me like you maybe are a perimenopausal woman or heading into perimenopause, your progesterone's low. So, once you see the spotting, no fasting. So no fasting, no keto. This is exactly what happened to me. I fell in love with a fasting lifestyle at 45. I started doing more of it, and pretty soon I would spot, and then my cycles got all turned upside down. I would spot, and then 2 weeks later I'd actually get a period, and when I got the period it was so heavy. That's low progesterone. So I had to teach myself that once my cycle started, I could fast like a queen, I could do all the fasting, but then somewhere around day 19, day 20 of my cycle, I stepped out of fasting and I started to do more of the sweet potatoes, the beans, the squashes that I teach you guys. I stopped fasting. And I did that for about 90 days, that routine, and the spotting went away. It was crazy. So at 45, I thought I was going into menopause. By 47, I was fully regular again. So something to think about. I would really encourage you to not fast when you see that spotting show up. I would not do keto. I'd lean into more hormone building foods. And I would try that a couple cycles through and it'll sync right back up. If it doesn't, then I would run a Dutch test and see what other hormones might be influenced there.
And you did write a book about that.
Yeah, and I did write a book about it. That's a good point. It's in the Menopause Reset. So that actually prompted me to write the book. So if you don't have that, you can grab the book.
Great. The next is from a different Christy Graham. Any explanation on why orgasms, we've never had this question.
This was a great question.
Are more intense when in a fasted state?
Yeah. So here's what's funny. So I'll repeat the question. Christy wants to know why orgasms are more intense in a fasted state. Normally, when Sequoia reads me the questions, I've never seen the questions before. I kind of like just the spontaneity of it. But this one he read me about 10 minutes ago, 15 minutes ago.
I just wanted to prepare you.
Yeah, and he's like, what do you think of this question? And it was like, it's a great question. Now, let's go and figure out the physiology behind it, Christy, because I want to know the physiology as well. So I think it's twofold. One, it's testosterone for starters. Okay, let's talk about testosterone. So testosterone, both men and women control the intensity of, has an influence. It's not the only thing, but has an influence over the degree of orgasm. So the height of orgasm that you have is very connected to testosterone. Just talk to any menopausal woman. As that testosterone tanks, the quality of her orgasm will change. Okay, now what do we know about fasting and testosterone? This is the part that irritates me. We only know it for men. There is great research showing that men, when they intermittent fast, they get a 1,300% increase in testosterone. If they go as high as a 24-hour fast, if they start doing that, their testosterone can increase by 2,000%. Awesome. We're super happy for you men. And what does that mean for women? We don't really have the research on testosterone and fasting for women. But I'm going to say our testosterone goes up too, because I felt it in my own self and I've seen it in comments from you. So I think A, it's an increase in testosterone. B, let's talk about ketones. So I always say ketones give you this limitless feeling. They make everything heightened. They make your energy heightened. They make your brain clarity heightened. So we love ketones. So I'm also wondering if you're noticing it in a fasted state, if the ketones just have your brain supercharged mixed with a combination of the increase in testosterone, that is probably what's going on. Now, I've probably spiked everybody's interest in having orgasms while they're in a fasted state. So we'll see where this conversation goes on this platform. Please be respectful with your comments, but I would be interested to know if other people notice the same thing, because I think that is a powerful combo for an increase in orgasms. And next week, by the way, on the Resetter podcast, I brought on a really cool neuroscientist. She studies sex, and she wrote a book called Come As You Are. Phenomenal book. Every woman needs this book. And we talked about the neuroscience, because I love science, of sexual desire. So super fascinating conversation with an academic. So I definitely want you to know she's an academic when you're listening to this. A year ago, I had a great conversation with Susan Bratton, who's a sex coach. She didn't approach it from a neuroscience. It was more applicable That was fascinating too. And we talked about libido and lifestyle that controls libido. So that's already on my podcast. You can go listen to it. It was about this time last year, so it would be in the earlier episodes.
Great. The next question, I'm not sure how to pronounce this name, Ayse, A-Y-S-E.
Ayse, okay.
From Turkey.
Okay.
And wants to know about the snake diet drink. Is it okay?
Yeah.
Is it okay to use? We haven't had that.
We haven't had that in a long. So Ayse wants to know about the snake diet drink and
use during fasting.
Yeah, to use during fasting. It was so popular like 2 years ago. We would get this question all the time. It's good. I have no problems with it. I don't use it personally. Where I think it's benefiting is that it's upping your minerals. So I think if you like it, I think it's fine. I would always test it against your own blood sugar to make sure that it's not pulling you out of a fasted state. Remember that just because the snake juice works well for one person, it helps them in their fast. It may not work for another person. We all have different microbiomes. So I would test it with your blood sugar, and then anything that adds minerals back in, I'm a huge fan of. I think he has you put some apple cider vinegar in it, if I remember properly, which can help with not only the gut bacteria, but help stabilize your blood sugar. Yeah, I think it's a cool tool if you like it.
Okay. Next is Eunice.
Okay.
And are there any tips to help it with keto, intermittent fasting when histamine is high?
Keto intermittent fasting when histamines are high.
High overgrowth. So maybe SIBO?
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly. When histamine is in high overgrowth.
Yeah, okay. So let's chat. And who was it?
Eunice.
Eunice, okay. So Eunice wants to know histamines, and then I heard some SIBO, or that was your interpretation.
No, that's what she put.
She put SIBO in there? Okay.
No, SIBO was my interpretation.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's talk about histamines, because that's what she wants to know. So when I look at histamines, or I think about histamines, I think about chronic inflammation. That's what I hear is the body is producing too much of something, and we need to get it to calm down. So all fasts are going to help with that. And especially at the height of a histamine overgrowth is the way you phrased it, Eunice. So when you have a big influx of a histamine response or an inflammation response, or we might as well throw SIBO in there, a bloated issue, fasting is the best thing to do. And you want to definitely get past an intermittent fast because you want to get that inflammation to come down. So I love it for anything inflammatory, cysts. I love it for ankle sprains or musculoskeletal injury. I love fasting pre-surgery and post-surgery when we want to go into the surgery and we want our inflammation to be low. We come out of the surgery and inflammation is high. I love it for that. The longer you fast in those moments of a cytokine storm is another place, a histamine reaction, a cytokine storm, a chronic inflammatory situation, the longer you fast, the more you calm that down. So think of fasting like you're putting water on a fire and you want to calm that fire down. So whether it's histamines or cytokine storms or just a good old-fashioned inflammation, fasting will calm the fire, and I love it for that.
Great. Therese, you just talked about this. Any thoughts on fasting before, after major surgery?
Oh, yeah.
You just talked
So
about
I'll just reiterate, before and after major surgeries, I like doing fasting and getting that inflammation down. Watch your food too. Get off the refined sugars, the refined carbohydrates. I like, you can put that into your repertoire before you go in. And then the trick when you come out of a surgery is just be mindful of where you're at. If you come out and you're famished, your body probably needs food to heal. Remember, you need to stimulate mTOR for growth and repair. So, but then I like fasting for bringing inflammation down. The other thing, you guys, I'm going to do an Instagram on Saturday. I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's come up on Instagram. It came up on Clubhouse. We have a Resetter collaborative club on Clubhouse. You guys can all join and find us there. People are asking last year they were asking, how can we use fasting around the virus? That was the question last year. If I was exposed to somebody with the virus, could I use fasting as a tool? And the answer was yes, because what we know is that if your cells are in a state of autophagy, that we won't have cellular replication or viral replication when a cell is in autophagy. I've done videos on that. So if you've been exposed to the virus that has taken over the world this year, then that would be a really good tool as far as fasting is concerned. Now, the questions I'm getting now are, what about before I go and get the shot? Could I use fasting as a tool to minimize some of the side effects? And this is just me thinking this out loud, and you have to decide what's personally right for you. It makes perfect sense, just like surgery, that you would want to go into any kind of shot. You would want to go in a state of autophagy and a fasted state, so that you create a more balanced immune response. So remember that we're not, like, the cytokine storm is a hyperactive immune response. And the shot can give you that same hyperactive. So if you're having a lot of bad reactions to the shot, then fasting can be a tool to just calm that down. The other great tool is things like vitamin D. So vitamin D is really interesting because it stimulates T regulatory cells. T regulatory cells keep a balanced immune response. So yes, fasting, vitamin D. The other thing that could be really interesting would be like the carnivore diet improves T regulatory cells. So there's some really cool ways we can use these principles around things like surgery, around things like shots, around things like exposures to different viruses. Because remember, you're born in an intelligent body, you just never got taught how to use it. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is teach you how to use it. Once you understand the foundational ideas, now how do we apply it to these different circumstances? But I'm going to do a whole IGTV on it on Saturday. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram, go follow me over there.
Great. And the last question we have in our academy is from Char. She's a cycling woman.
Okay.
On keto and carnivore, doing both for about 5 months.
Okay.
Never had any issues with hair loss, etc. Do you think a 3-day water fast can heal adenomyosis and fibroids?
Okay. Can a 3-day water fast heal fibroids and adenomyosis? I'd have to go see what the words, how that's phrased, but let's talk about just fibroids. So yes, here's how let's talk about 3-day water fast, because that's really to answer this question, is applicable to all of us. So a 3-day water fast is a healing experience. You're literally saying to your body, okay, I don't know what to do anymore. So I'm going to take food out of the equation, and I'm going to let you, intelligence of this body, figure out what to do. So anything inflammatory, it will work great with, and fibroids are inflammatory. So I love it for that. I love it. I always tell the story of my Achilles tendon. I healed with a 5-day water fast when nothing else was working. So the answer is absolutely. And for all of us, the learning experience in this question is when to use a 3-day water fast. And you can either use a 3-day water fast, to me, as 3 possibilities. One, you can use it as to heal something you can't figure out what to heal. 2, you could use it as prevention, like a lot of people believe that it can really affect, kill cancer cells that might grow and get out of control. And then the third one is a spiritual experience. And the mindset and the insights you get on those 3-day water fasts are quite incredible. So absolutely, and we all could benefit from a 3-day water fast. So, and remember, fast training week, so we just got done doing autophagy in May. We're going to do the 24-hour fast. In June, we're going to do autophagy 24-hour fast training week. I'll be teaching on that. In July, we're going to talk about the fat burner fast, the 36-hour fast. In August, I'm going to talk about the dopamine happiness fast. And then September, we will go into water fasting. So that's coming up in all our fast training weeks, where I'm going to go back to each one of these fasts and educate you guys. So get ready.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we're getting pretty close to having to pull you off because we have a academy call here in a moment.
Cool.
So we did have there was an interesting question about getting a youth, an 18-year-old to fast. We haven't talked about youth and fasting in a while.
Yeah, we haven't talked about youth. To me, 18's not youth.
It's right on just almost 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you run that past our 18-year-old? I don't think he would say he's youth.
That's true.
But we have an 18-year-old. I'm like, he would not like this conversation.
No, but you want to talk about.
Okay, but I know what I know. Yeah. So I'm just joking around. Okay. So kids and fasting, not necessarily 18-year-olds. The younger the age, the more you're going to want to maybe do some of the shorter fasts, but they have to want it. I don't care what age you're at. Fasting is an individual tool. So the person who's going to fast has to say, I want to fast. So if they're 18 and they're coming to you and they're like, hey, you're fasting, that's really cool. I would like to learn. Phenomenal. By 18, you can do all the fasts you want as long as the person is intuitively desiring fasting. So to me, an 18-year-old's an adult and can fast like an adult. But the desire needs to be coming from them. It can't be mom or dad saying, hey, you should try a fast. Not going to work. And the younger the ages, I just wouldn't go into longer fasts. I can tell you how we did it with our son is when he went off to high school, we started having this moment where we found he wasn't waking up because, when teenagers are growing their parasympathetic nervous systems, which are the nervous systems that relax us, so they actually are biologically designed to sleep more. So he wouldn't wake up in time for breakfast. And this was right about when I was studying fasting and getting into the science. And so we found ourselves sort of chasing him out the door with breakfast. And then one day I'm like, wait a second, he doesn't seem bothered by it. Why don't I ask him when he's naturally hungry. And he said, I usually get hungry about 10 o'clock. He was meandering into the cafeteria at that time. So we just made sure that he broke his fast at 10 and that felt in his rhythm. If you have a 5-year-old, they don't want to eat breakfast, stop pushing breakfast on them. Just stay tuned to when they start to flip out or when they might need some more food, and watch what their natural eating rhythm is. This idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day, that eat your dinner or you're never going to get food again, like this dogma and rigidity we've had around food has taken us completely out of a natural pattern with our own intuitive sense of when we're hungry and when we're not. So if you have a young child, help them understand what is their natural circadian desire for food, and that will be incredibly helpful. So, okay, as always, hope that helps. And those of you who are in my academy, we're popping over there soon, so I'll see you guys on the academy call. And enjoy the belly fat video tomorrow. I'm excited to bring it to you guys. Have a great one.